Um, all right. Well, thank you for being here. We're going to start out talking about the SAVE Act. I did want to just let everybody know, don't worry, we're going to drop links in. We have one document that has all our links in it, and we're going to share that document throughout the presentation and also send it to you afterwards. And we're going to send you a recording. We're going to send you slides. We're going to send you all the resources that you need. You're welcome to ask questions in the chat. And we will try to answer them as we go along. We will cover a lot of things, so I'm guessing that a lot of the questions that you have will probably get answered as we go along. Don't worry about, feeling like you know everything by the end of this meeting. You're really going to learn by doing when you get out there and you start doing voter registration. So this is really just to kind of cover some of the information, but then you'll have plenty of opportunity to kind of learn and practice as you go along. So first of all, I did want to just bring to your attention the SAVE Act. You've probably heard about it. Raise your hands if you've heard about the SAVE Act. I'm guessing that a lot of folks have. There's a general narrative out there that non-citizens are voting. This is not true, but it's an easy way to kind of attack voting rights and actually to shrink the electorate by making it harder to vote, by requiring proof of citizenship at registration, which is, really unfortunate. So it undermines voter registration because basically what it means, if the SAVE Act were to pass, this is at a federal level, then we wouldn't have any voter registration drives anymore. All of this would be irrelevant. None of us would be allowed to register voters. We wouldn't have any online voter registration. All registration would have to be at the boards of election, and they would have to check for proof of citizenship at the time of registration. Anyone who was already registered when they went to update their registration would have to bring proof of citizenship. So it undermines our voter registration efforts. It harms voters because a lot of people who are citizens are not able to easily prove that they are citizens. And it also is very dangerous for election workers because it exposes them to criminal and civil penalties, while they're just doing their job. Lots of people do not have access to a birth certificate or a passport. 84% of married women change their name, which means that their name on their driver's license and their birth certificate does not match. So, there are millions of people who don't have access to the documents that they would need, which is clearly problematic. So we are asking, so it was supposed to be voted on this week, but actually Cory Booker and various other things meant that got put off. So it should come up in the House next week. It is likely to pass the House. But there's a chance we can hold it off in the Senate. So this is not a done deal by any means yet, but at the same time, we're going to have to fight really hard to make sure that it doesn't pass. Of course, Ohio is trying to pass very similar legislation at the same time. There's a new bill that's coming up, SB 153, that you may hear about later. So we not only have to get out there and register everyone to vote, we also have to fight hard to protect our right to register people to vote and the right of people to actually vote. So this is very important. So thank you for caring about these things. And again, we'll be sending all these links to you afterwards. And actually, Anne may drop in the chat a link to the one document that has all the links that we're sharing this evening. So voter registration, it's something that Indivisible Central Ohio does a lot of. We really enjoy. I think there's some people on this call who already know how to register to people to vote. I see you, Aunt Ruth Farthing, and others. But it's always good to refresh, and we always need new people. So the great part about it is, at least right now, there are no limitations or restrictions on who can register people to vote in Ohio. You don't have to be 18. You don't have to be a registered Ohio voter. You don't have to be a citizen. It's really important to get out there and do it. Sometimes you might have lots of luck and register lots of people. Sometimes you might not get anybody, but you're still raising awareness. You're answering questions. Address changes are important as well. So we appreciate anything that you guys can do. So who can register to vote in Ohio? Anyone who's a US citizen, an Ohio resident, and 18 years old by the next general election. Those are the rules. And who's not currently serving a felony conviction. That is not the same as having had a felony in the past. You have to be currently serving your conviction, and then you are not allowed to register to vote. But if you have served in the past, you're absolutely fine. Or if you're even if you're incarcerated and you're pending conviction or it's a misdemeanor, you are also eligible to vote. So I always say that registering to vote is actually super easy. There's just lots of little details that can kind of trip you up. But the basic thing, get a registration form, fill out the registration form, fill out all the highlighted parts, make sure it's legible. You're good to go. That's it. That's our whole training. You can all go home now, or you're already at home. But so it's really just the attention to details. It has to be legible. If it isn't legible, then the people who are transcribing it won't know what to write. And if they make a mistake, then that person isn't registered in their correct name. We have to make sure that they give their ID, that they give their birth date, that they sign. All the different parts have to be filled out. And in order to do that, what we do is we guide them, we help them and guide them. So while they're holding the clipboard, you've got your pen, or they're holding it away from you, you've got your pen, and you're guiding them and you're saying, last name, super legible. Thanks so much. You can print your first name in this box. Down here, we're going to put your street address, and you're guiding them and you're pointing to that, to each box, and you're showing them what to do. And you know in advance some of the things that they're likely to do wrong. And so you're making sure to call those out. So county and not country, your birth date and not today's date, etc. And then before they leave, you're going to read it over and make sure you can read everything and that every highlighted box is filled. So that's very important. Here is some current common errors. Really important are these two boxes at the top. I'm registering, sorry, are you a US citizen? And will you be 18 years of age by the next election? The very top line, which is I'm registering as an Ohio voter, isn't actually required. That's fine. They can fill it out. No big deal. But the one that asks if they're a citizen is literally the most important question on the entire thing. And it's easy to forget. So we want to make sure that, you check it over and you make sure that that has been checked. County, not country, birth date and not today's date or vice versa. Ohio driver's license, you either put the last four, for the ID, you either put the last four of the Social Security or you put your Ohio driver's license. An Ohio driver's license has 2 letters and 6 numbers. So if someone puts 10 numbers, it's not an Ohio driver's license. The driver's license, the temp license, and the state ID all are good, and they all have 2 letters and 6 numbers. And so we can't use a license from another state. So we want to make sure that either it's the last 4 of their social or it's the correct Ohio ID. Dorm students who are in dorms, we want them to put the street address and the room number. That will help us to make sure that it gets delivered to them correctly. This can be an issue. So we also always ask folks to put their phone number, even though it's not required. And we ask them, I know for some people of our age, it's a big deal to get a text. You don't really want too many people texting you. Young people really don't mind. So we just ask them very casually, is it okay if we text you a reminder? And 99% of the time they say sure. And we put a little asterisk in the margin by the phone number. And then we actually do send them a completely nonpartisan text just to remind them that the early voting has started and the day of the election. But it is important. So what we want to stress is we're not just registering to people to vote. We're trying to get them to actually vote. And that's a different thing. We're trying to help them understand why it's important, what elections are coming up, what those things can mean, and to remember to vote when the time comes. So we want to have a connection with them, and we do that by including the phone number. We tell them to expect a letter from the BOE within 2 to 3 weeks. This is good because if there's something has gone wrong and they don't get the letter, then they'll know that they probably aren't registered, and then they can call the BOE and just see what's going on. We also want them to look at that letter and make sure that their name is spelled correctly and that everything is correct on the letter. If there's a problem, they should get in touch with the BOE. So can I get some folks in the chat to tell me some things they see that are wrong on this voter registration here? Check the first box. Are you a citizen? That is correct. Now, the stuff crossed out is an interesting one. As long as it's legible, it's okay. This one is a little too many errors for me. I would probably start again, but it's, in this first box here, I put Mia Lewis and then I crossed it out and I put Lewis. Lewis is actually correct in the end, so it's technically fine. Okay, so we've got some other problems here. Didn't answer US citizen. Not enough numbers for the driver's license. Very good. That's correct. It's just 2 and 4. That is not correct. Check the citizen box. Signature is not in the box. That's a good one as well. See these dotted lines? They actually take a digital image of what's inside the dotted lines. And that is technically your signature. And they match that. When you go to vote, they match that to what is here. So if I have actually signed outside of the box, that's not gonna work when I go to vote. So Cebus instead of Columbus. Yeah. I mean, technically, I think they'd register you with Cebus, but let's go ahead and say yes, they should do that. Zip code is not required, but it's better if they put it. We like them to put it. Birth date is incorrect. That's clearly not the birth date. Number 5. Yep. One more you guys have. Anna, county is Ohio instead of county name. Exactly. So it looks like they've switched the birth date and today's date, and that does happen sometimes. They've put Ohio instead of county. They haven't got the correct ID. So this person would not be registered. They would not be registered. If you turned this in, and they went to vote, they would find out they are not registered. All right. So we did have a bill pass recently, which did change some of our rules. We used to be able to fill out the form if the person wanted us to, if they had really bad handwriting, and then they just sign it. Now we can really only do that if the person is blind, disabled, or illiterate. So, that's why it's really important for us to make sure that we let people know that it has to be legible, and we take the time to read it through carefully before they go away and get that phone number so that we can contact them if there's something. Middle name or middle initial, it's not like super required, but what we usually say is do what's on your driver's license. If you have a middle name or a middle initial on your driver's license, just go ahead and use that the same way. We don't have exact match yet, although there is a bill that has been introduced for exact match, which really would be horrendous, because so many people have, they put Bobby when their name is Robert, or, as long as it's legible, they don't really have to do a new form. But if you are worried that the form just looks too messy, go ahead and start another one. Just cross that one out and say void and start another one. But as long as you've filled out every box and it's legible and you know what's supposed to be in there, you should be okay. Now, students, we do tend to register a lot of students, and so we do have, some special rules. In Ohio, at least at the moment, you can vote if you will be 18 by election day. You can actually even vote in the primary because the primary just decides who's going to be on the ballot. It doesn't vote for who's on the ballot. So if you're going to turn 18 on November 3rd, you can vote in the May primary when you're 17. So that's important to know. So when you're out registering people, you see young people, you can say, will you be turning 18 by November 4th? And if they say yes, then you can go ahead and register them. Paper forms, we do have online registration in Ohio, but I will say it's kind of almost a hoax because it is quite difficult to go through. It doesn't work. It doesn't work if your address on your license is different from where you live currently. It doesn't work if you haven't had a license for quite a while because the signature that you've given to the BMV has to be transferred over to the Secretary of State's office, and sometimes that takes some time. And sometimes it's not clear when you go to register online and it is not successful. It's not obvious that it hasn't been successful. So quite often younger people who haven't had a license for a while or their license doesn't match their home address, they go to register and online and they think that they've registered, but they actually haven't. So we always prefer a paper form for younger people. Students can choose to register on campus or they can choose their parents' address. We strongly believe that it's better for them to register on campus so that they can go and vote in person and they don't have to go through absentee vote by mail where there's just likelihood of, it not getting there on time or getting lost or not having a stamp or, forgetting to fill it out and not picking it up from their mailbox or, whatever it is, so many different ways that it can go wrong. So we prefer for people to register it on campus, but it's truly up to them. Some of them may have a good reason. They may have somebody that, is a family friend who's running for school board or something at home and they want to register at home. That's fine. Some students may be out-of-state students and they may have a reason that they want to vote in their home state. And again, they also have a choice, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But if they do choose to vote from home and home is not close by, then we want them to begin the absentee ballot request process as soon as possible. After an election, right after an election, you can begin to request absentee for the next election. So we can request absentee ballot now for the May election. And after the May election, we could begin to request absentee ballots for the November election. They just get kind of stacked and they aren't sent out until the first day of early vote. The absentee ballots are mailed on the first day of early vote. So if, let's say, you submit an absentee ballot request in August, you're not going to hear anything until the middle of October. And that's good to remind people too, so they don't think it's been lost. If you do get somebody who wants to do an absentee ballot request at the same time as their voter registration, we ask that you have a paper clip and you clip those two forms together. The reason is if they're separate and they go in a big stack and the person at the Board of Elections comes across the absentee ballot request first and they go to register that, they won't find a registration. There'll be no registration with that absentee ballot, and so they may just toss it. So in order to make sure that the absentee ballot goes through, we want to make sure that we hand those in together. And thank you for allowing me to just zoom through some of these. We'll stop and have questions, in a little bit. And I know that Anne is answering some as we go along as well. So to vote in person, either in on election day or at early vote, you do need an unexpired photo ID. And we like to tell people that to make sure that, we remind them that they're going to need that ID. So they need an Ohio driver's license, temp license, or state ID. Digital ID is not accepted, and it has to be unexpired. It doesn't have to have your same address that you live at now. At least it doesn't right now. That will change if 153 passes. Um, but it does have to be unexpired. You can also use a passport or passport card, a military or veterans ID. And if an Ohio student doesn't have an ID, they can get a free one at the BMV. They can also contact Vote Riders is a great organization that helps people get, let's say somebody doesn't have an ID because they don't have access to their birth certificate, or there's some other complicated reason why they don't have ID. Vote Riders will literally help them go through the whole process to figure out how they get their ID. If you come across a student who is from out of state and who wants to vote in Ohio, the thing that they're going to want to do is vote with a passport if they have one. We don't encourage out-of-state students to get an Ohio state ID, because if they do that, it will literally invalidate their home state driver's license. So we want them to vote with a passport if they're going to vote in person, or they can always vote absentee using the last four of their social. Because no photo ID is required to vote by mail. We still have that. You fill out the absentee request, you put the last four, your ballot is mailed to you. So that if you don't have ID, that is kind of one way to get around it. No, please don't staple. Thank you for the question. Do not staple, just use a paper clip. So I guess I just said all this. So out-of-state students, they've got to choose one or the other. I recommend, if they have a passport or military ID, voting in person. If they don't, they can vote by mail. Start the process as soon as possible. Technically, we like to say that it's technically possible that an Ohio voter registration could impact a scholarship for an out-of-state student. I haven't ever heard of it actually happening, but if somebody had, let's say, like a 4-H scholarship that was from a particular county and it required you to be registered to vote in that county, and you registered in another place, that could have an impact. But again, very, very, very rare. We can't help people with absentee ballot requests from other states. So if someone this happens occasionally, someone will hand in a stack of absentee ballot requests to me, and I'll look at them and I'll see one and it says that their registration address is in New York. And that won't work. We only can do absentee ballot requests for Ohio. They have to request from if they want to vote in another state, they have to request from that state. Melanie, the very strange thing about using passport as an ID, which is a fairly recent rule, is that passports don't have any addresses at all. It doesn't specify your address. So no, it doesn't have to have an Ohio address. It doesn't have any address at all. So that's a little bit of a strange thing. So yeah. All right. So this is what an absentee ballot request looks like. The yellow parts are required. We do always ask people to put some contact information, because the boards will then be able to reach out if there's a question or a problem. Number 3, you can see that is where you are already registered to vote. And the ballot will be mailed to that address unless you fill out number 4. If you fill out number 4, you're saying, I'm registered at this one, number 3, but I want you to mail it to this other one because I'm not going to be at my normal address. So let's say you're going to be doing work study in Michigan and you want your ballot mailed to Michigan. You live in Columbus, so you're going to put your address where you're registered in number 3, but then you're going to put your address where you want your ballot mailed to number 4. and then you put your birth date, one piece of identification. If it's a primary, you have to put whether you want a Democratic, Republican, or issues only ballot. If it's a general election, you do not need to say anything about your party. And then you sign and you date. And then we tell people, please, please, please track your ballot. When you track your ballot, and it's voteohio.gov/track, when you track your ballot, you get a notice, either a text or an email or both, when they receive the request. You get a notice when they mail you your ballot. You get a notice when they receive your voted ballot, and you get a notice when they've counted your ballot. And this is just hugely helpful, so that people know, what's going on. And again, remind people if they fill out an absentee ballot application that they're not going to get the ballot, the ballots will not be mailed until the first day of early vote, which is about 30 days before the election. So we went through this already. Wow, we can skip right ahead. Um, so part of the fun part of registering people to vote is just chatting with people. I always say if you're shy, and you go out there, just pretend you're somebody else for the afternoon. Just pretend you're an actress, and we have these orange shirts, which we'll talk about your equipment in a little bit. We have all the materials that you need. We have the clipboards and the pens and the shirts and the forms that are highlighted and the absentee ballot request forms. We have all of those things for you. And then we never want to kind of put people on the spot and kind of act as if we're checking up on them. Like, did you register to vote? Have you registered to vote? Have you done the good thing you were supposed to do as a citizen? We're much more just offering them a service. Hey, do you need to update your registration? Have you moved since you last voted? Have you had a name change? Are you turning 18 before November 4th? Et cetera. So you make eye contact, you smile, you look at it as an opportunity. And we try not to put people on the spot. That's why we like to go out in pairs, and kind of make it fun. I forgot to bring my clipboards over here. I usually have them as a demonstration. Our clipboards are not like this. They have a nice back on them, which say register to vote here. And we like to give people two clipboards so they can put a clipboard facing each direction, and they can hold it up in the air, and people coming from both sides can see what you're doing. And you'll have the bright orange shirt on as well, and people will know what you're doing. It's also really, really good to ask people to check their registration. You'd be astonished how many people, and I know the folks on here who have done a lot of voter registration will agree with me, how many people think that they're registered and they're not. Either they used to be registered, or they filled something out at the post office that they thought was voter registration and it wasn't, or they're registered at an old address. So we do love to have people check. And there are two ways that people can check their registration. And we usually ask them to take their phone with them and to put open up a browser and have either the Ohio Secretary of State website, which is voteohio.gov, open so you can check there. Or they can go to this other site, which is voteforohio.com. And we like voteforohio.com. It's a special site that was built by a friend of ours who does, Joe Knapp, who does a lot of voter registration on campus and is extremely good at it, and a great data person. So he built this app, and the reason that we say it's superior to the Secretary of State's website is because it searches all 88 counties at once. If you're looking for someone's registration and they forgot that they are not registered in Franklin County, they're actually registered in Delaware County. If you look up in Franklin County, you won't find their registration. It also doesn't require you to put their whole name. You can put part of a name and then an asterisk, and that'll bring the information up. So, and it also tells you right away if the person is in confirmation status. And confirmation status is something that happens when you haven't voted in a while, and the Secretary of State has mailed something to you and you haven't mailed it back. You get put in a kind of a pool of people who are going to be purged if you don't vote or update your registration. And that is really important to know. So I'm actually going to show you how this works. So here's this lookup, and you can open this on your phone. It's not, you don't have to download an app or anything. You just go to the browser. And the important thing to remember about it is that you can just use part of a name, um, and uh, and then use a wildcard. So I'm going to take Anne Schroyer. So I'm going to say Anne first name, but I don't actually need to put her whole last name. I'm going to put SHR and then an asterisk. Anytime you don't, if I just put it without it, if I put SHR without an asterisk and I look up, 0 matches. If I put SHR and the asterisk and I search, there's 5. And you see they're from different counties: Seneca, Wayne, Ottawa, Lake, and Delaware. I can even do it just SH. And you could also you could put Anne and you could put her the first part of her street address, or Anne and her zip code, or Anne and her birth date, and see who comes up. You can play with this yourself and do yourself. Just remember that to use that asterisk. So I wanted to show you this one. This is 114 matches with Anne and an asterisk. And the reason I wanted to show you is it has a couple of people who are in confirmation status. So what that means is these people haven't voted for a long time, and they're going to be purged if they don't vote soon. Quite a few people you see here are in confirmation status. So the people who are in confirmation status, we want to encourage them to fill out a new voter registration form. You can do it for them or they can do it. I think, honestly, with the Secretary of State's one, I would probably have them do it. But with this one, because the asterisk is a tiny bit complicated, I would do it for them. Either way, it is fine. But it is a really great tool. We like it a lot, and we are always very thankful to Joe for having made it. So have that open. When in doubt, ask people to check. You know, they may not know if they've moved, they don't know if they've updated or not. It's very useful. Okay, and the other thing we want to do is tell people what to expect next. So what's going to happen? You're going to get a letter in the mail, follow up with your local BOE if you don't get it, tell them when early vote starts, tell them who's on the ballot, offer to remind them to vote. And one thing that's important to remember for on-campus students, so you guys know when you go in to vote, they ask you to give your address. It's kind of like they're double checking to just test you to see if what you say is the same as what's registered. So if I say I'm registered at 12 Piedmont Road, and I go in and I say I live, at 48 Olentangy, they're going to say, oh, that's not the correct registration. I've forgotten to update my registration. So what happens sometimes with students is they register at their dorm, and then when they go in, the person at the poll says, what's your address? They give their home address. So just remind them that when they go in, they should give the address where they're registered, which is the one that's right there where their polling place is. For absentee ballot, we definitely want to make sure that they're tracking it. We tell them when the ballots will be mailed. We'll talk about the ways that they can return the ballot. On campus, in the fall on campus, after the registration deadline, we will be on campus helping people with stamps and reminding them to mail their ballots and things like that. So that's important. Okay, so that's really, this is a good time to stop. Does anybody have any questions that we haven't covered that are just about the technicalities of registering to vote? And feel free to drop it in the chat or unmute yourself or or whatever.
I was gonna throw in two questions we got in the chat, Mia, and I double checking because I'm not sure. If someone's on parole, I believe the answer is they can
They
vote.
can vote. Probation or parole, they can vote. They have to be literally serving their sentence, which means it's super unlikely that you will come across them. It's technically possible. Sometimes at the very, very, very end of a sentence, someone will be sent to a kind of like a halfway house correctional facility where they'll be for, 2 weeks or something, but that would be pretty unusual. So no, usually if you see them, but a lot of people are shy to say that that's why they say, oh, I'm not able to vote. And they don't say why. And so that's when I always say, well, if you're a US citizen, unless you're currently serving a felony conviction, you are eligible to vote. And
Mhm.
most people do not. I will say when people are sentenced, they have their registration taken away and they're told that their voting registration has been taken away. They are never, ever told when they leave that they have the right to register again. They are never told that. And I would say 90% of people who have served a sentence and have come out are not registered and do not know that they are allowed to register.
I've run into that when we canvassed, and people who have been incarcerated will say, like, even if someone tells you you can, there's so much going on when you leave prison that
Right.
that's not your highest priority at the time. And the other question someone asked about the middle name or initial. So we ask for that, but we wouldn't reject a form if it was blank, correct?
Right. Exactly. So in some states, they have a rule that what is on your driver's license, um, or what is on your voter registration has to match when you go in. You have to show something that exactly matches. So if you wrote a middle initial before, you have to write a middle initial this time. We do not have that currently in Ohio. But again, there's a bill that's SB 153. Thank you, Teresa Gavarone, evil, evil woman, that is basically a Christmas tree bill that will add every single restrictive and harmful voting law in the nation to Ohio's laws, including exact match, address would have to match, all kinds of other things. So we are really, uh, unfortunately, that's just a, a reality that right now the folks that are in power, both in Washington and in Columbus, are actively seeking to make it harder to vote and to literally reduce the size of the electorate so that, you know, fewer people can vote. Um, yeah, so you can get forms from the BOE, and usually they may need to get to know you a little bit before they'll give you a larger amount. If they give you a small amount and you fill them out well and you bring them back and they're clean and they aren't filled with crazy mistakes and stuff, then they'll they appreciate that. They appreciate forms coming back in that are not filled with mistakes and, all of that kind of thing. And then they trust you and they'll give you more. Um, uh, we actually, that's another thing. In Ohio, you don't have to have an actual form from the BOE. You could get 10 forms from the BOE and then you could photocopy them if you wanted to. You can download them from the Secretary of State's site and print them out. So you can do anything. We just happen to really like the ones that are from the Franklin County Board of Elections because they're on heavy paper and they're pre-highlighted. So we always pick those up and we use those. This is a great question about updating a form. I'm sorry, I'm going to go all the way back and to the beginning to show you that, which I should have at the very beginning. Let's see. You know what? I need a whole form here. Okay, here. So here is C number 12. Number 12 is your previous address. So the three boxes at the top are not required, but you can check them. If you're updating your address, you need to fill out the whole top part to show what you want your new registration to be. So the new registration, your new address, all of that good stuff. But then number 12 is your previous address. It is not required. If the person is rushing, they can update their address without telling you anything about where they previously were located. And in fact, if they're moving from one address to another inside the same county, it's not necessary whatsoever. If they're moving from one county to another in Ohio, it does help the BOE to tell them where you lived previously, because we have 88 different boards of elections in Ohio and they aren't really connected digitally at all. So when the person in Franklin County is trying to make sure that you aren't registered in two places, they have to essentially check in 88 different counties to clean that up. So it's polite and nice of you to fill out this part if you can, but it's not required. If the person is changing their name, which might be because they got married, or maybe they are transitioning and they have a new name, this is a thing, you're going to fill out again. The top part is your new information, what you currently are and what you want to be. And then line 13 is your former legal name and your former signature. So that is obviously required if you need to update your name. The address, previous address, is not required, but it's a nice thing to do. Any other questions that are popping up? Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we want to, we're kind of early in our voter registration season. We mainly are active from the middle of August until the beginning of October. That's our really busy time. That's our busiest time. We're also busy during the spring, late spring and throughout the summer registering people. But we do have a voter registration deadline coming up because of the primary. The deadline is actually next Tuesday. So there is a little window right now to register people before the primary. Of course, you can register them after Tuesday, but they won't be able to vote until the general election. So we have a sign up genius. And basically, we are going to keep that same sign up genius throughout the season, and we're just going to keep adding new events, and it'll, the old ones will disappear and the new ones will come up. So, and it has a slot for people who've never done this before and people who have done it before. And in a perfect world, you would be paired up. We hope to be able to do that. That's not always possible, but we hope to be able to do that. So, for example, there are big rallies this weekend in Columbus and in other towns, across Ohio. And we think it's useful to have some people out there with clipboards, either registering people or updating registrations. So on our, I'll show you our Sign Up Genius. On our Sign Up Genius, we have slots, which I hope after this evening will all be full, with people who've done VR before, people who haven't done VR before. And this is for the State House. And then we have a Monday one for the Columbus State campus, a morning shift and an afternoon shift. So those are two opportunities that you have. And I hadn't really thought about the other rallies that are in other places. If you want to do voter registration at other rallies, you're more than welcome to. So on the Sign Up Genius, the way that works is you go here and you click, let's say I'm going to sign up here. I click that I want to go on that one there. I look at the date and the time and the place, and then I say save and continue. And then I put in my information and then I say sign up now. So you have to there's a few buttons. One, you'll know when you've actually submitted it because it'll say, you just signed up, and you'll get an email saying that you signed up. So you'll know that you're signed up. And that if you save this link, which we are going to send to you, you'll be able to see events for voter registration all season long. You'll be able to see them all season long. And you can also suggest your own place to do voter registration. Maybe you want to do it at your church, or you want to do it at a club, or there's a sports event. Your grandkid is in a soccer tournament and you want to bring a clipboard there. That's fine. Wherever you want to bring a clipboard, we're into it. That's awesome. We do have supplies. This is, we have these great shirts. We've got great clipboards. We have pens that have voting information on them. We also have these nice little tables that you can bring with you that are portable. We have candy and stickers and sidewalk chalk. We have information, all kinds of things. And those supplies are all on my porch. And my porch is 437 Piedmont Road. There's a tub out there right now that has clipboards that have voter registration and absentee ballots in them. They have pens. We have some other things in there. There's also a spot in there for turning in your registrations. So the rule with registrations is there's that part of the bottom where they sign and they put the date. It has to get to the BOE within 10 days of that date. But because we like to follow up with people, we actually take all the forms that you guys get, you bring them to us, and we copy them and we enter them into a spreadsheet and we check with the Board of Elections to make sure that the registration has gone through. And if it hasn't gone through, then we contact the person and we let them know. So that's why we want those forms to come back to us rather than going straight to the Board of Elections. So, if you're not in Columbus, if you're watching this voter registration training and you're somewhere else entirely, that's fine. Just make sure you get them to your Board of Elections within 10 days. If you're in Columbus, we would love to have them on my porch. If that's super inconvenient for you, you could scan them or take pictures of them and then bring them to the Board of Elections. Whatever works. When you get here, if we have Post-it notes and clips and pens in the tub. If you can put a Post-it note on it saying your name, your contact, the date, where you got them, then we know if there's a big problem, we can get in touch with you. Sometimes people turn them in late and I have to call them and say, this was late, that's no good. So don't send them to us on that 10th day. If at all possible, bring them to us the day that you get those registrations, and that gives us a bit of time to do the next steps that we have to do ourselves before we turn them in. We're always here. I have on my porch, there's a phone number that's in the bin so that you can text me to let me know that there are forms in the bin because I don't want them to sit out there. You're welcome to ring the doorbell or knock or whatever, but just let me know that the forms are there so that I go out and I bring them inside. Don't forget about asking people for their phone numbers so that we can follow up with them and just let them know. Sometimes, like for example, we reminded people that it was time to vote. And then some people wrote us back and said, I requested an absentee ballot. It hasn't gotten here yet. And we were able to help them track that down, figure out what happened, tell them how they could vote provisionally instead if they didn't get the ballot. So we can actually be around to answer questions and help people if we have a way to contact them. Legibility, most important thing. Check before they leave. Get the phone number. Out-of-state students with a passport vote in person. Go out with a buddy. All these important things. We're sending you these slides. So the primary season, we're just going to mostly be at protests or rallies and a little bit of campus VR before Tuesday. We're going to go to Pride and farmers markets and other festivals and things during the summer. And then we start on campus with the OSU Student Involvement Fair, which is usually like the third weekend in August. The general election deadline is October 6th. And then we'll do some activities to remind people to vote on campus right up until Election Day. But we're always looking for new places to do voter registration. And then before we end here, this is my last slide. I really appreciate everybody being here, and I know that people are distressed by what is happening in our country and they want to take action. If voter registration is the best way for you to get involved, that is fantastic. There are other ways as well. We really encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter, check out our website. we have this thing that's called a link tree, which is super cool. I'm going to click on it and you're going to magically see the link tree. It's basically, it's just all our important links. This is our newsletter. This is like an interest form. This is our website. This is to contact us. This is all the different things that we're up to, that you can get at that link tree right there. We have weekly protests at Tesla, 4:30 to 5:30 at Easton on Saturdays. There's weekly protests outside of Senator Moreno's office Wednesdays at 12:30. We have, a Facebook group. We're encouraging people to use 5 calls. There's all kinds of ways to get involved. So you're going to get all these links. And that is that. So I'm going to stop sharing and just see if anyone has any questions. Yes, if you feel like you could, if you were out and you were, uh, if you feel confident about, registering people to vote, then it's fine. I mean, really, honestly, the important thing is make sure every highlighted box is filled. Check it over carefully, make sure it's legible. And then the other important thing is just that you're able to answer people's questions. And obviously, the more experience you have, the easier that will be. And so part of being there with somebody else is really just to make sure that if there's a question that you can't answer, that a more experienced person can answer that question. Because even though this is really simple, there are questions that come up. People say things like, I'm moving, I'm moving next week, 3 days before the election. What should I do? Or, there's just like weird things come up that, it's helpful to have an experienced person there. So we've recorded this and we're going to send you the recording. It will be available for you to watch. And we're sending the slides and all of those things. The voter bill that's been introduced is called SB 153. And it hasn't had any hearings yet. It's a doozy, people. It is a doozy. What can I say? These folks at the State House are just, so we are, if we had a magic wand, we would take that away. The SAVE Act is also really bad, but, I think we have a chance of stopping it in the Senate, I hope. The problem is, even though people who aren't citizens really don't vote, it's hard to persuade people that it isn't a reasonable thing to ask people to show citizenship when they register to vote. It's just people don't understand that will disenfranchise so many people, and it will stop all of these voter registration drives, and it will just, it'll make life impossible for people that work at the Board of Elections. It seems like a reasonable thing, but it just isn't. So it's a little bit hard to fight against because it makes it seem as if you're saying, oh, sure, non-citizens should be able to vote. That's not at all what we're saying. We're saying they already don't, and it's not an issue, and you already have to check a box saying that you are a citizen. So it really, shouldn't be an issue. Any other questions? We're pretty much on time, people. We have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to ask questions. Well, I hope folks are going to be out on Saturday at one of the hands-off rallies. There are now 51 rallies in Ohio. That's a lot. And something like 15,000 people signed up across the state. I will say, I was shocked. We have almost 2,000 signed up in Columbus, and I was feeling very proud of myself. Cincinnati has more signed up. Toledo has more signed up. Toledo has well over 2,000 people signed up for their hands-off rally on Saturday. So you got to get out there and get your friends to sign up because, um, but anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, Anne, for helping. Um, and I am going to send you a follow-up that's going to have that link to that sign up genius. And we are looking for 10 people to register people at the rally this weekend. And that means you come over to my house, you pick up clipboards. Jackie Bird, who I do not know if she's on right now, but she's going to be kind of leading the voter registration people at the rally. So you'll be there. She'll be there to answer any of your questions, give you supplies, do all of those things. So this is a perfect place for you to like dip your toes in because most people there will be registered, but there'll be some young people who aren't. And oh, there you are, OH Central. That's Jackie. Most people will be registered, but there'll be some young people. And I tell you, registering someone for the first time, an 18-year-old, that is always so fun. That is the best thing. And then there'll be some people there that need to do address changes. So it'll be a great, great time to dip your toes in. So we hope you all rush over to the Sign Up Genius. In fact, I'm going to put that Sign Up Genius in the chat right now so that you can all go over there right now before we leave and sign up. There you go. So everybody click on that link, open it up and sign up until there are no more spaces left. And if you want to do VR at in Westerville or Delaware or Union County or Grove City or Newark or Zanesville or any of the many other places in Central Ohio where there are rallies, that's fine too. Just let us know and you're welcome to come and get materials. And Jackie says, get there at 11. We'll send, when you sign up, we'll send you some more information. Thank you, people. See you soon.